Good afternoon to all of the people here and watching. My name is Anna Fleece. I'm with the Great Falls Development Alliance as their Food and Ag Development Center Director. As part of the 11 Center FADC network throughout Montana, we are dedicated to helping food and ag businesses thrive and grow by connecting them with technical assistance and resources they need to grow their business. Today, I'm joined by Judy Cornell of Conservation Grains, and I'm very excited to hear about her recent trip down to Denver to do the Regenerative Food System Investment Forum. So, Judy, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Anna. Thank you.
Uh, Good. Can you give us first a little bit of background about Conservation Grains, what you do, and what prompted you to start this business?
Sure. This is our fifth year in business. We're in a flour mill in Choteau, Montana. I also farm regeneratively, which is what led me to milling, looking for some other way to utilize to sell the what our farm produces outside of a typical commodity ag structure.
Mhm.
And one year we had a bunch of hard red winter wheat in the bin, and I had a chance to sell some of it to a distillery in Helena. We cleaned the smallest amount possible, and that was 5,000 pounds. The distillery only needed like 1,000 pounds. So I had all this clean bagged grain, and what else am I going to do with it? And so I found an old mill and started experimenting. And that was about 5, 6 years ago, probably. So I think we sold our first packaged flour December 2018. So,
Excellent.
and the more, as far as farming goes and regenerative ag, the more I learned about soil health, the more I knew we needed to do things differently on the farm. Our soil organic matter was declining, and I considered organic, but tillage is very harmful, I learned, to the soil microbiome. And so I started moving toward regenerative, which is probably a good time to say, at least for me, what that is. Regenerative ag is no-till, so minimal soil disturbance. For us, we really try to be zero-till. Complex crop rotations. We do use some herbicides, but again, those are complex rotations as a consequence of rotating crops. And we haven't used glyphosate in years, haven't used a fungicide on the farm in 6 going on 7 years, and that's really big.
Wow.
And don't use any insecticides. Our farm, already we had planted shelter belts and developed about a third of it into wildlife habitat. So it has all these buffer zones that are beneficial for the fields. We could really see it in the year when the grasshoppers were so bad, because instead of eating our crops, the grasshoppers moved into the still green buffer areas. So what else is in regenerative ag? Minimal synthetic inputs like fertilizers. We really haven't escaped that conundrum yet, but this year for the first time we're exploring using microbial seed treatment
Oh,
to
interesting.
boost the natural microbes in the soil that are nitrogen fixing.
Mm,
And they're not GMO microbes. They're ones that occur naturally. And so we'll see. I really want to figure out how to get livestock on the harvested fields for a short period of time to intensive graze it.
mhm.
Haven't figured that out yet, but working towards it.
So it's
So regenerative ag is its primary focus is soil health.
which it differs from organic, which is just the limit of herbicides and other chemicals on it, correct? So it's
Correct.
kind of the
Yeah.
next stage of holistic farming, sort
It's
of.
some organic farmers like
Mhm,
Vilcas Farms, yeah, up in Havre. Anna was at the
mhm,
conference, are doing regenerative organic farming.
mm.
I don't know how they do it. I've got to go visit them. How do you control weeds without tillage or without herbicides?
Yeah.
Um, but they're early on in it, so I guess we'll see if it's successful and if
Mhm,
they can stick with it. I'm full of curiosity. I think an important part of regenerative ag is not being too constraining in what people do and experiment with, because we really don't know the best way to farm.
mhm.
There's not a best practices. Everyone should keep experimenting and trying different things to figure out how to recover our soil health, because we've been selling it abroad in effect through exported commodities for decades.
For basically the entire life of America, right?
Yeah, but I think it
Mhm.
really kicked in like in the 50s with the Green Revolution.
Yep.
So,
So,
so
and
that's regenerative ag. Yeah.
perfect. So it's kind of an emerging level, working on soil health, working on rebuilding that so we have really sustainable farms for generations to come. And recently, I know it's become a little bit of a buzzword, at least in the investment community too, is everybody's looking past organic, past sustainable, and actually into regenerative. And so, um, Judy, you went down to the Regenerative Food System Investment Summit, um, or Investment Forum, and had a chance to talk with some of these investors. Is that right?
500 people there.
That's impressive. And 10% were producers this time, right?
10%. This was the sixth year of the conference. And yes, they
Mhm.
had the most farmers ever attending the conference, and that was only 10% of the people there. It really started as a gathering, small gathering, I think, of private investors who were interested in finding projects in the regenerative space. They like that space to invest in.
Mhm.
And so they networked and shared information, got together, and they've continued to do it, and it's obviously grown, and there's a very, I mean, the primary focus of the forum is about capital investment,
Mhm.
both from the investor point of view and from the producer's point of
Yeah.
view.
And so just to give a little bit of background, um, why Judy was able to attend this forum and have her flight and hotel and everything paid for, as well as the fee, was that the Biden administration passed the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Act, which was focused on during COVID. We really realized how fragile a lot of our food systems were. And so this was a set of money to really bolster and improve local farmers, middle of the road or middle of the supply chain processors, or anyone getting food into the hands or onto the plates of Americans. And part of that was creating the Northwestern Rocky Mountain Business Center, which is an 11-state regional coalition to really promote right size investment, which was part of this. Strong meat supply chains, technical assistance for recipe development and groceries, as well as more on I think the regenerative ag as well. So the Montana Department of Ag was able to request some money to send a handful of resilient regenerative producers down to this forum so that they can learn a little bit more about this investment side. And so Judy was there along with Villicus Farms up on the High Line, and then Cole Mannix from Old Salt down in Helena.
Also, gosh, and I don't have her name offhand, there was a gal from Missoula who does
Oh, the
fermented food.
fermenting, yes.
Yeah, at any rate, she was also there.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Anna who got me into this. And when I heard that I was accepted and heard that we might have to do a pitch. What's a pitch? It's like, meh, all right, I guess I'll go.
Yeah, because part of this was training for business owners and learning how to do business pitches, find business plans that are very attractive to investors, and gain some of those skills as well. So Judy, I'd love to dive into a little bit of what you learned, both either in the boot camp or the work prior to the event.
Right, it was great for that. There was a Zoom meeting. Some folks from the Northwest Rocky Mountain Food Center took a group of people under their wing and coached and through a Zoom meeting and were available to answer email questions, and then met us at the conference and kind of like little ducklings got us pointed in the right direction once we got there. The investors, and actually those attending came from all over the United States, including Australia, Belgium, because they expect food to be the biggest investment opportunity in years to come worldwide, trillions of dollars. I mean, I didn't even make notes about these numbers because they seem like where I am is pretty out of touch with that, so it didn't seem terribly relevant, but the numbers are huge. They said food will become the most valuable industry in the world. The benefits that they perceive, aside from the investment benefit, is soil health, human health, carbon capture, global warming, food security by decommodifying the food industry, and stronger communities. And regenerative ag's getting traction in consumer markets, in part because of climate change conversations, in part because venture capital is now interested in it. The private investors are really looking for, great projects. And this interest is global. I learned that in India, the government is subsidizing what we are calling regenerative food. Some of the funding terms. Now, I knew nothing about most of this going in. So, private foundation, Wealth Family Office. Those are charitable giving programs or debt or equity investments. Private investor, equity investor, angel investor. Private individuals who provide capital in exchange for either convertible debt or an ownership interest. And then there's venture capital for equity, and they're looking for the next great thing in its infancy. And these investors are usually managed by professional companies that do just that. I learned the term capital stack, which is used very broadly. I had no idea what it meant. It's the hierarchy of different sources of capital
So that
stacked
could
by
be
risk.
loans, money from the business, your money going into it, but then also any sort of grants, foundations, gifts, all of that makes a capital stack.
Right.
Mhm.
They view equity investors, not our own equity, but let's say the venture capitals who will take an equity position in your company to be the most risky. But I think that's from the perspective of the venture capitalist.
I imagine that it is.
Yeah. To debt, which is the least, because it's collateralized.
Exactly.
Also in the capital stack are government programs, as you mentioned, Anna, be they grants or loans, and crowdfunding, which was something I hadn't thought about. One of the venture capital companies, or perhaps it was one of the private investors. The story of the middle of the food chain company didn't have enough equity match to be able to access the private funding.
Mm.
And that funder went out and started a crowdfunding for the middle of the food chain company and got the whole ball rolling. So one thing, I mean, there's many things I learned, but there's no cookie cutter program for how this capital investment works. It's very fluid, adaptable. I mean, they're trying to find ways to invest in you. If you are the one that they want. So there we come with the pitch. The pitch is a brief explanation of your business and what's called the value proposition. The value proposition is what's special about your business, what's special about you, and what's going to set it apart and make it appeal to the buyers of the product and also to the investors. And one bit of advice was act like you're the prize. Go into it, not begging, but behaving like, hey, everyone's going to want me. So
Great advice just in general.
yeah. They spoke about fundraising as being all about relationships and the importance of finding the investor who wants to spend the time to learn about and understand your business. Some of the arrangements with the investors are, it's just write a check and send it to me. Other people want investors who actually maybe sit on the board or check in and help problem solve, whatever it may be. So as far as the pitch and the value proposition and making those relationships with investors, it's suggested that you start with really sound, solid business information that you share with them, but then jump in and share your passion. Why do you love your business? What excites you? And it should excite everyone about your business. So I think most of us can do that part.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I learned about the 5 C's of a business plan, um, which are pretty fundamental. Credibility,
Mm-hmm.
uh, how solid is your financial statement, etc. Capacity, collateral,
Mm-hmm.
capital, and conditions, which conditions refers to what's happening in your market. Which whenever I do, let's say, a projection for a grant, I think anticipating or talking about who my competition is, for instance, is always such a challenge, and it always seems a bit BS-y. But you have to take a stab at it, I guess. What do you think, Anna?
I mean, I think it always depends. You have to find the right investor and make sure I'm answering the right question here. But it's really important, especially with any sort of farm business or food business, that a lot of angel investors, tech startups, venture capital started in the tech space, right? And that has a very different timeline, very different sense of scale and ROI than the food business. So no, if you have an investor who's used to focusing in the tech space and they're wanting to come in and invest in conservation grains, for example, they're not going to be seeing those same ROIs or return on investment, and they might have a very different sense of like what the scale and growth model should be. So really finding the good match there. And that they understand the conditions and they understand the business, the climate, and how everything works,
The scale.
the
Yeah.
scale. Hmm.
Um, yes, I mean, yeah, there
Yeah,
are companies that are getting multiple hundreds of millions in funding.
yeah.
Quite a bit, a different thing. Um, I thought this was interesting. It suggested that you be very intentional
Hmm.
about building your assets
Mm,
in your business, um, to provide you the foundation to access the lower cost, lower risk capital, probably debt.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I think that's very good advice. I gather, though, a lot of banks may or may not touch you anyway, despite, if you're 100% capitalized with your own equity, they
Hmm.
still may not want you. Um, and that's where these alternative funding sources really are important in moving a business forward. Because if you
Exactly.
can't get conventional financing,
Hmm.
or if the terms of the conventional financing are too restrictive, maybe for
Hmm.
your growth plan.
Yeah.
Um, they're looking for projects that will scale, ones that can become regional or national businesses.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think that necessarily fits for all of us, but again, it's suggested to build your business plan from the future and work backwards,
Hmm.
um, which I think is quite a challenge. One of the things that certainly changed for me as a consequence of attending the forum in Denver is I'm thinking bigger.
That's fantastic, though, Judy. I'm really happy to hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Um, so, and it seems more possible.
Hmm.
Um, anyway,
So would you be seeing conservation grain flour like from LA to New York now?
I don't know if that's the objective, because I still believe in fresh flour,
Hmm.
but um, perhaps satellite mills
Mm. Yep.
all over the place, small community mills that serve their communities with fresh flour milled locally. That's to me a more interesting model than trying to sell in a grocery store from coast to coast.
That would be really interesting, or connected directly to bakeries and then
Mhm.
yeah.
And, we're still in the heart of grain countries,
Hmm.
best grain in the world.
Best grain in the world from our climate
Yeah,
conditions, the
yeah,
Golden Triangle.
yeah. So, the grain should still be sourced
Hmm.
here and, processed in terms of cleaning and packaged, but it can go out on pallets anywhere.
Hmm.
So, no, that is, as far as facilities go. Now we're talking about a big building.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. Okay, circling back, CPGs, this kind of
Hmm.
fits. I kept hearing this acronym, CPGs. Finally, I asked, what is it? Consumer packaged goods.
Hmm.
Okay, that's pretty obvious. Um, that's that middle of the food chain. And it seems like the venture capitalists are really interested in that investment
Yeah.
space. Although at the very end of the conference, 4 people gave pitches, and the large audience voted on who won the
Hmm.
pitch contest. And it was a gal who takes waste from livestock processing
Hmm.
and takes the parts that can't be used otherwise, the hides primarily. I guess most hides just
Get thrown
go to a
away. It's
waste,
unfortunate. Yeah.
landfill, and she makes leather goods out of it.
Oh, very cool.
Um, but she was so passionate, and her delivery was great, and she's been in business. It was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, there were, as you mentioned, 3 presenters, Montana presenters, Cole Manx from Old Salt in Helena. I have a couple of quotes from Cole that I liked very much. One is, the first is, more wealth in communities will be the test of the integrity of their investment model. Which is, there was a lot of talk about community impact
Hmm.
among over the days of the conference and among the presenters. And it's the regenerative ag is more than about a way of farming or even a way of producing food. It's
Hmm.
also about how it impacts other communities where these farms and businesses exist, which
Hmm.
I think is cool.
Absolutely.
Um, Anna Crabtree, who I mentioned earlier from Villicus Farms, she was there presenting. She's on the board. She's the board chair of the Iroquois Valley Farmland, which is a REIT, real estate investment trust,
Mhm.
um, that's looking for projects where I think they buy and do a lease back, but again, very flexible in structure, of organic farmland.
Hmm. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, actually,
Hmm.
as I read, and they are unique in that you don't have to be a certified investor. You can be Judy Cornell off the street, investing $5,000.
Hmm.
Um,
That is unique. That's really cool.
it is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we
Why
should do
not?
that. What the hell? um, and then Mad Markets, who I really don't know much about, except they bought Timeless Seeds in Ulm 3 months ago with 2 other investor firms.
Hmm.
Um, so let me see. Um, toward the wrap up of the conference, we were told that 30 to 50 trillion dollars of wealth will be moving into the hands of women by 2030.
That's incredibly soon.
It is, and it's a lot of
It's
money.
a lot of
And
money.
so the point being made was, this is going to change how companies are investing their money
Mhm.
and how consumers are buying products. They said that women make up 70 to 80% of household food decisions.
Mhm.
So in this big, growing food investment space, women are going to be key drivers of how it develops, which is pretty
Which
neat.
is
And
very cool. Yeah.
one woman presenter up there on the stage said, and in 1998, I remember, because I tried to, a woman couldn't take out a loan without a father, a husband, or a son to co-sign it.
Wow.
So, so go gals. Um, and then there were some breakout sessions right at the very end. Large foundations like Rockefeller Center explaining their commitment to transforming the US food
Mhm.
system to make food healthier, basically. Um, there was talk about doctors being able to give prescriptions
Mhm.
for fruits and vegetables instead of drugs.
Yep.
Um, and another gal spoke about a program called Eat Real Program, where they're removing sugar from the schools to fight diabetes. And also, she had statistics that it helps kids are more focused,
Mhm.
not surprisingly, in school without, sugar being everywhere in their diets.
Yep.
So, um,
Keeping that glucose level steady really help with
mhm,
focus, attention. Yeah.
whole grains.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Whole grains, whole grain flour.
yeah, yeah. I am interested in, as a consequence of the conference, seeing how we might get our flour into some schools more than we do. We have
Hmm.
some schools who are customers. I don't know whether they'll have the same kind of funding for that going forward. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
But hopefully, because that would be really beneficial for the schools to be supporting local farmers, children eating, the things that are grown where they live, and just learning a little bit more about their food as well.
yeah.
All right. Well, Judy, it sounds
So,
like you got some amazing takeaways. You want to grow bigger, you want to get into schools. This all sounds really exciting for you. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. One day at a time.
one day at a time. Absolutely.
I still need about a dozen of me
Yes.
or more. Um,
But yeah,
yeah.
that's, I think just about every entrepreneur I've met has always been like, if I only had like three of me to just do everything, we'd be in such a
Mm-hmm.
better spot. But
Yeah.
knowing you, you'd probably just be growing too much that you would need like five of you and then 10. Yeah.
um, well,
Nice.
some of the grants, in the
Mhm.
meanwhile, that I'm hopeful that some of the grants will help move the ball forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we're wrapping up, is there one thing that anybody who is watching the recording of this can do to support you or your work? Or
Oh,
one piece of advice that you would give a new entrepreneur?
well, um, as far as supporting conservation grains, I really encourage people to bake with whole grains
Mm.
because because of the health benefits, the flavor,
Yep.
fresh flour, and we would love to supply it. Um, and to people who are seeking investments, I would say start with grants because it seems like the same work that you need to do in doing a grant application is what you would need to do for any sort of capital financing ask.
Mhm.
And it's such a good, painful exercise. You should
Yes.
just dive in and do it if you haven't. And if you have, then you already are well down the road to um, figuring out the financing you need for the future.
Perfect. And if anybody watching wants any support on either locating grants, grant writing, or getting financially set up, please feel free to reach out to your local Food and Ag Development Center director and they can provide you with all the assistance you'll need. All right. Well, Judy,
All
thank
right.
you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you had a good time and learned a ton and were able to bring back some of your pearls of wisdom from the conference.
Well, I appreciate you getting me into this.
Absolutely. All right.